what's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with a massive CGC unboxing. This is economy tier, means it's pre-1975, and it's gonna be early bronze, a lot of silver age, a little bit of golden age, a bunch of keys, some low grade, a few books that are the highest in the census. Two books that are higher than any other book in the CGC Census. So, super excited to share this with you. Let's get into it. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Dr. Paul Cosmic. I've been collecting comics over 40 years, and I like to share my passion, my knowledge on comic book collecting, investing, and comic book conservation right here on the channel. So hit that like button, subscribe, do all that great stuff. I'm gonna put my spectacles on so I can talk about this stuff intelligently and I can actually see what I'm doing. All right, I'm just gonna pull them out as they come. I do know what all my grades are. Personally, I think that's a better way because then I can kind of share my notes and thoughts with you rather than fumble through. But I know some people like the excitement, and I'm not gonna pretend to be shocked by these. Some of these I'm gonna be genuinely like thrilled to see without any kind of fake shock. So first one is one of those. Captain Atom, number 83. So this is the first Blue Beetle. This is an 8.5 off-white to white pages. This is Charlton Comics, November 66. And first appearance of the Blue Beetle, Ted Cord. So this is basically first appearance of the Silver Age Blue Beetle. So I cleaned and pressed this book. Most of these books I cleaned and pressed. Some of them I did wet cleaning, some of them I did full disassembly, some of them I did wet overlay presses. They're all blue label. I didn't get any purple label. I didn't get any notes about cleaning or any of that. If you do it correctly, you shouldn't. You still can, because CGC it's made up of human beings, right? And sometimes a book that'll get blue label 19 out of 20 times means the 20th time it could get conserved or restored. That happens. So anybody that guarantees you it won't happen is just silly, frankly. You could send in a book that's never been touched by anybody, and some amount of those books, even if it's 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000, will come back purple label. So it is what it is. So what you really should be saying is not, I guarantee you won't get a purple label or conserve label, but that you have a good track record of not getting them, right? So this book, a couple notes on this total submission, and then we'll get into this book. So this whole submission was economy. So economy, as I mentioned, is for pre-75 books valued, estimated $400 or less. Economy tier costs $5 for a submission, that's like a flat fee, and then $35 per book, plus shipping and handling, plus shipping and insurance both ways. So when you do the math, if you're really careful and you sub 25 books at a time and you judiciously pick your shipping options, I have my own insurance carrier, so I don't have to pay for the rather expensive insurance through the shipping companies. I can get these books slabbed for about 40 bucks. That's what I consider my cost for the slabbing. Now, because you have to have books that are worth estimated value 400 or less to be in this tier, I try to flirt with that 400 number, but I try not to submit anything that I think is going to be worth less than 200. Because a book that's only worth, say, 150 bucks, if I have $40 of slabbing in there, now basically I'm only getting 110 out of $150 if I were to sell the book for $150. If my cost is 60 or 80 bucks, I mean, typically it's going to be hard to buy a $150 book for less than that. And then I have my time is valuable. I'm only going to make maybe $20, $30. And that's if everything goes well, right? Like suppose there is some restoration on the book that I didn't notice, or there's some damage or something else that I didn't notice. There's too much risk there. So for me, I want to flirt with that $400 range. And my rule of thumb actually on this is I don't tend to sub books that I think have a fair market value of much under $200. You'll see some of the books I subbed do have a little bit less than that, but I also thought they had upside potential when I subbed them. So that's your best strategy for economy. And one more note on the timing. These books I subbed at the beginning of April 2022. When I subbed them, CGC said their turnaround time on economy tier was 3 months. 3 months went by and they said their turnaround time was 6 months. 6 months went by and they said their turnaround time was 8 months. 8 months went by and they said their turnaround time was 10 months. I received these books back at the very end of January 2023. As a matter of fact, I moved during that time because they were with CGC for 10 whole months. They have said that they're working to bring the turnaround time on economy back down. I think they're super backed up on economy and magazine, and they're prioritizing those to get those turnaround times down. So I do think I probably would never use economy again if I knew my books are going to be locked up for a whole year. Remember, this is all post-pandemic. I really did not expect my books, especially because their advertised turnaround time when I subbed them was only 3 months, my books to be locked up for a whole year. That said, if they do work that inventory down, I would consider using economy again, because if you use economy with a rush, it's like another $15. So then you're going from $40 for your slabbing cost to $55. It starts to get tough when the cap on the value of your book is $400. There's a whole, eighth of it is tied up just in the slabbing. So anyway, enough generalities. Let's talk about this book specifically. So when I estimate the grades, I do a very conservative estimate. I think almost like my estimate is kind of worst case scenario. What if I catch the graders on the worst day and there's some flaws I missed maybe? So my estimated grade is not my true estimated grade, not what I think the book will get on a median day. It's more like, what do I think the worst grade it could come back as? So I thought my worst case scenario on this book was likely a 7.0. And at the time I subbed it, again, here's something to remember. I subbed these almost a year ago. The market was generally higher a year ago than it is today. So this is another thing where, you can sub a book that has a fair market value of 400 when you sub it, and then your capital's tied up for a year almost. And then when it comes back, that book might only be worth 250 bucks. So there's risk to this, right? So when I subbed it, I said, I think this book on its worst day is still going to get it a 7.0, and the fair market value of a 7.0 at the time was $400. Now, it came back in 8.5. Thrilled with that, obviously. I kind of honestly thought it was an 8, so that's even a little bit better than I thought it was. Fair market value on this book today is $650, and the record price for Captain Atom 83 in an 8.5 is $865. There are only 415 of these in the census. So CGC could have kicked this up to the next tier on me because fair market value is $650 in an 8.5, but they didn't. And if you flirt with that 400 number, they often won't, in my experience, but they sometimes do. I've had a couple books kicked up, but I like to flirt with that 400 number and force them to kick the book up, right? So I think I'm going to do very well with this book. Like I said, fair market value, even in this bear market, is $650. So I am thrilled with this one. Hopefully we'll have lots more like this. This video isn't really about showing the books, but feel free to hit me up on IG if you're interested in any of these books, because most everything in here will be for sale. These are mostly duplicates and things that aren't really core to my collection. Here's something that I think is really special. So this is Archie's Girls, Betty and Veronica 71. This is from November of 1961. White pages. Now I cleaned this, pressed it. This was wet cleaned by me and subbed. I bought this at my local half-price books for 25 bucks. I think I used a coupon, so I think I paid less than 25 bucks for that. When I bought it, I'm not a huge Archie fan, but I thought, this is a high-grade book, and I might be able to do something special with it. So, Betty and Veronica 71, I estimated on its worst day it'd be a 7.0, and I estimated the fair market value at $200. The grade I got back, as you see, is a 9.0. Now, for context, there are 4 in the census. 4 now that this one's in. CGC's got this one in now. There were 3 when I subbed it. This is the census high, and it's the census high by a huge margin. I think the next highest one is like a 5 or something, all right? I've seen these books now when you can do one of these late golden, early silver, 10-cent Archie books, and you can advertise it as highest grade in census. $2,000, $3,000 for these books. This is what they're going for these days. The market is super thin, obviously. There's only 4 in the census, so you can't really put a fair market value on this, but this is what I'm going to market this at. And I think the best place to market this is a big auction like a Heritage or Comic Connect, Comic Link, Hakes, one of these auction houses. I think they'll be able to get me over $2,000 for this book. So I'm estimating the value at approximately $2,000. I actually think it'll sell for more than that. But another one I'm absolutely thrilled with. Just incredible, and I'm thrilled. I actually like Archie. It's just, most of my comic books are more of the superhero spandex type stuff. That's just what we got into as kids. It's funny, we took our comics like way too seriously to be into Archie when we were little. But I'm happy to see Archie kind of have a resurgence, and I do enjoy them. I especially like the art style. All right, what do we have here? Batman 189 from February of 67, 2.0 off-white pages. This is another book, first Silver Age appearance of the Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane. This is another book that I bought rather inexpensively because it was low grade, and I cleaned and wet pressed this, and I'm very happy with the grade. Now, one thing that I will say is I got called out on 2 books, and I learned something from this submission. So this is Batman 189. I estimated this at a 2, and it came back as a 2. In a 2, I estimated the fair market value at $200. Turns out this is one of the few books that's actually gone up in the last 10 months, in this grade at least. So current fair market value is actually $220 with a record of $224 that was sold just days ago, actually. 1,750 of these in the census. And I actually have one more Batman 189 in here. So this is a book that I've been able to find in the range for like 100, 150 bucks that I think, in this particular one, I think I only paid like $80 for, that I think, offers an opportunity. Now, do I want to sell it at today's fair market value at $220? I mean, maybe just to keep cash flow going because there's so many other great deals out there right now. But I'm thinking about that book more like long-term potential. I think it's a great book for long term. Here's that same book in a 4.5. So again, for Scarecrow, 66, 1,750 in the census. I estimated this one going in at a 4.0, that's my conservative estimate, came back at a 4.5. And the fair market value at my submission time was 300 on this book. With the half grade bump, and the current fair market value on this is 325. The record paid for this book is actually 660. So if this bear market recovers, this will be a really good book to generate some revenue for me. Again, for me to put toward, my real passions, which are more higher grade and golden age books. Speaking of golden age books, next one here is a golden age Batman. Batman 48. This is the August-September 1948 issue. Has a penguin appearance, and they note the interior cover has an ad for Dale Evans #1. Off-white to white pages 3.5. This actually presents extremely well, as you can see. And it's actually a book that I had a double of. Just acquiring raw golden age books, you occasionally end up buying lots, or you find books that you think are just so cheap you should buy them. Or maybe I bought this one and later on I found a 48 in higher grade, so I upgraded. So what I'm doing is slabbing this one again, so just to make it easier to sell and maximize my return on that book so that I can turn that capital into some other book that I'm more interested in. So I estimated this book on its worst day as a 2.5, and I estimated the fair market value on a 2.5 at 375. It came back at 3.5, and fair market value on this is about 550. So this is another one they could have kicked up to the next tier if they wanted to. I don't have a market high on this. There are only 153 of these in the census, including this one now. The reason I don't have a market high is because this book in this grade, only being 150 of them in the census, just doesn't trade hands very often. So the last sale on this was over a decade ago. So, isn't that cool? The reason why this is stuck at a 3.5 is, even though it presents super well, is you have some splitting. The first ½ inch here is split, and the first inch or inch and a quarter down here are split. Other than that, the book presents really well, and you can see those splits from the backside. So I think this is gonna make a collector really happy. Like I said, it presents a lot better than a 3.5. And I think, buy the book, not the grade, as they say. Here's another book that I thought was a good speculation book, relatively high grade. Avengers number 52 from May of 68 in a 7.0 off-white pages. This is the first appearance of the Grim Reaper, Eric Williams. And this is the issue where the Black Panther joins the Avengers. This is from my absolute favorite era of the Avengers, when Roy Thomas was scripting and John Buscema was on art. I love these books. This era, I think Roy Thomas was just handled the Avengers much better than Stan did. So my real silver age for the Avengers starts with Roy Thomas taking over. So what did I think I had going in on this book? I thought on its worst day it was a 5.0 and the fair market value was only $140. But the reason I subbed it, even though it's below my $200 threshold that I mentioned, is because we're getting Wonder Man, and Grim Reaper is Wonder Man's brother, and any Wonder Man story is probably going to have the Grim Reaper in it. So I think this is a speculation book. I'm not ready to sell this one. This one will kind of go in the vault, and we'll wait for some kind of appreciation around that event, or that's my hope anyway. So a 7.0, 2 full grades better than what I thought the worst case scenario was, has unfortunately a fair market value today of only $100. The record for a 7.0 is $218. There are 800 of these in the census. So for me to really be happy liquidating this, we're going to need some appreciation around the Wonder Man entrance into the MCU. But I love the cover. I love this era, so I'm happy to keep this for a little while. I'm really not into this book much. I don't think I paid $20 even for the book. And I spent some time obviously cleaning and pressing it, but that's my hobby. I enjoy that. So I don't mind doing that. And it's not a chore for me. All right, let's stick with Avengers. Avengers 48 from January of '68. Again, from that same era, the Roy Thomas era. This happens to be a George Tuska cover. This is Dane Whitman becomes the new Black Knight and Magneto and Toad appearances. So this was, you know, those of you that have been with me for a while on the channel know that I have a complete run of Volume 1 of Avengers. Some of the books I acquired a long time ago and they're a little bit low grade, and so I've been, when I can find nice high grade examples, I've been upgrading some of my copies and just cleaning my collection up and curating it a little bit. So this is one of the lower grade copies that I had, and I upgraded in my personal collection. And I thought with the Black Knight coming to the MCU, kind of sort of already in there, but not as the Black Knight just yet. Dane Whitman's in the MCU, that this one might be one with good potential for a flip. So it does have a chunk out here. It's got a small chunk on the back missing right here. It's got a bit of a split. It does have off-white to white pages, and that's because this is another book that I wet cleaned, or I overlay pressed it, I think, actually. So I thought on this book my worst case scenario was a 2.0, and the fair market value when I submitted it on a 2.0 was $300. So it came back as a 4.0, and the fair market value on the 4.0 is only $240 today. So this book has really gotten hit by this bear market. The record for a 4.0 is $534. So it's been more than cut in half. Census on this book is 2,480, just under 2,500 books. So we're gonna need Dane Whitman to come back and be in the MCU and have some fan interest for us to want to part with this book. For $240 or $220, something like that, I'll hold on to it for a while. So that's another one that'll probably go in the vault. Although if somebody wants to make me a nice offer on it, I'd sell it sooner. But hey y'all, while editing that video, I realized it was pretty long for one video, so I'm gonna break it up into 3. So part 1 will be Monday, part 2 will be Wednesday, part 3 will be Friday of this week. So hopefully you enjoyed the first third of these books. If you want to see more content like this, like and subscribe, and tune in Wednesday and hopefully Friday for the rest of the conclusion. I've got some really big books still coming up. And until next time, happy hunting and take care of one another.